Okay, so have you ever heard of one of those stories that just make you go, what is going on here?
Oh, absolutely. I think we all have.
This is one of those, for sure. We're doing a deep dive on this situation at get this, a Trump rally out in Coachella.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, loaded guns, fake IDs, the whole 9 yards. You'd think it'd be a pretty open and shut case, right?
You'd think so, right.
Not so much. There are these layers here, these weird details that just make it, well, fascinating, to say the least.
Yeah, it's really a prime example of how messy things can get when you've got conflicting stories, especially in this day and age. Everything's so politically charged.
Exactly. So, paint us a picture. Trump's holding one of his rallies, right? The usual security checkpoint, all that. Suddenly, this, I kid you not, black SUV rolls up and get this homemade license plate. Already, you got to be thinking something's not right.
Yeah, not subtle.
Not at all. So, inside the SUV, we've got this guy, Vem Miller, and he's packing not one, but multiple firearms.
Oh, wow. Like, what kind of multiple are we talking?
We're talking a loaded handgun. We're talking a shotgun.
Okay, that's definitely upping the ante.
To say the least. And as if that wasn't enough, he whips out a fake VIP pass, tries to just breeze right through.
Oh, no. Yeah, that's gonna set off some alarms.
You'd better believe it. So, naturally, security is freaking out. But here's the thing, and this is key. There had already been, get this, 2 assassination attempts on Trump since July.
Right, so law enforcement is on edge, to say the least. They're looking for any sign of trouble.
Exactly. This wasn't some isolated incident. They're seeing a pattern here, which might explain why the Sheriff Chad Bianco, I think it was, comes right out and says this was a potential 3rd attempt.
And he did not hold back, did he? Called Miller a lunatic. Clearly, he was convinced this was serious.
Totally. But because life is never simple, there's another side to all this.
There always is, isn't there?
Vem Miller claims he was actually there to support Trump. Says it was all a big misunderstanding.
Okay, hold on. How does he explain? Well, everything.
So he does this interview, right, with Fox News. Insists he always travels armed. Says he told the guards in the checkpoint about the guns. Never planned on using them. Even told the Las Vegas Review-Journal he'd been to, get this, 10 other Trump rallies. Guns in the car every time.
Okay, but, I mean, come on, that's a little much, don't you think? Even at a Trump rally.
You'd think so, right? But get this, even Trump's people weren't all on the same page. Some source close to the campaign said they doubted it was a hit.
Wow. So who do you believe? It's like, how do you even begin to sort through this? You've got the guns, the fake pass, that's pretty damning. Then Miller pops up with this whole other explanation, says he's a supporter, totally innocent. It's a lot.
It's a lot. And then there's Miller himself. This guy, he's not exactly who you'd call a nobody. Ran as a Republican for the Nevada State Assembly back in 22. Didn't win, but still, he went on to start his own online media thing. America Happens Network, it's called.
America Happens Network. What's that all about?
So the way they describe themselves, it's all about truth, right? They're fighting against the mainstream media narrative, all that.
So already you're seeing that distrust of traditional news, which is definitely something to keep in mind as we go through all of it.
For sure. And don't even get me started on his social media. We're talking far-right conspiracy theories, the works, vaccines, 9/11, you name it. We don't have time to dive too deep into that today, but it definitely adds another layer of, well, something to this whole story.
It does make you wonder, though, does someone's political past automatically mean you can't trust what they're saying now? Like, where do you draw the line between someone's beliefs and the actual evidence?
Right. It's a tough one, and it's something we all have to figure out as we try to make sense of the world, especially these days. It's like we're trying to put together this puzzle, right? But half the pieces are missing, and the ones we do have, they don't quite fit.
It's a good way to put it.
We've got Miller and this whole incident, but what makes it even crazier is, well, everything else going on. Security at these kinds of events, the whole political climate, it's a lot.
Yeah, it's definitely bigger than just one guy at one rally. We have to look at the whole picture. All the tension, all the, honestly, misinformation flying around. And then you throw in, like, the right to bear arms. It gets complicated quickly.
It does. And Miller's whole defense, it's all about that, isn't it?
Yeah.
He's saying he always travels armed. It's his right. End of story.
Which, of course, brings up Second Amendment. And that whole debate about gun control in the U.S., which, let's be real, is never going away. But I think this case, it goes even deeper than that. It's about balancing individual rights with, actually keeping people safe. Especially in a climate like this where things feel so volatile.
It's a tough one, for sure. Because if someone like Miller, with all his baggage, the online stuff, his past, if he can just show up to a rally with loaded guns. I mean, what does that say about security?
That's the million-dollar question. And honestly, I don't think there's an easy answer. This whole thing, it exposes a real weak spot, you know? It makes you wonder what more we can be doing to prevent this without, going too far, without taking away people's rights.
So where do we even go from here? How do we even begin to make sense of any of this?
I think the biggest thing, and this goes out to anyone listening, you got to think critically. You can't just take things at face value, not headlines, not sound bites, not anything. You've got to look closer, especially with stuff like this, where emotions run high.
So you're saying be more careful about the information we're taking in, especially with social media, right?
Yeah.
Everything spreads so fast.
It's scary how fast. Look at the sources. Ask yourself, why are they telling me this? Is there another side to this story? And honestly, the hardest one, am I just believing this because it fits with what I already think?
Which is hard to do, right? Being honest with yourself about that kind of thing.
It really is. But it's crucial, especially with this case. You've got people saying Miller's a wannabe assassin, others saying he's totally innocent, this is all political. It gets messy fast.
It's like that echo chamber thing, you know? Everyone's just reinforcing what they already believe, and there's no room for actual conversation.
Exactly. Which is why, more than ever, you've got to seek out different points of view, even the ones that make you uncomfortable. Challenge your own ideas. Be open to the idea that things are more complicated than they seem.
Easier said than done, though, right? Especially these days, when we're drowning in information coming from every direction.
No, you're right. It's hard. But it's on us to be smarter about this stuff, to navigate this information landscape and not just get swept away by it.
You know, it's kind of wild when you think about it. How easy it is to get sucked into one side of the story, you know?
Oh, totally.
We all have our biases.
Yeah.
It's just human nature to gravitate towards the stuff that already makes sense to us.
Confirmation bias, it's called. Powerful stuff. We see it all the time, how people get their news, how they form their opinions. But in a situation like this, where the stakes are so high, you really got to be aware of it. Got to try to look past it.
So bringing it back to, well, everything, I guess. How do we figure out what's true? How do we even assess the risk when everyone's got a different story?
Yeah.
What's your advice to our listeners out there, especially with all this intense political stuff going on?
Honestly, I think it starts with just asking questions. Don't just accept things blindly. Who's telling you this? Why are they telling you this? Is there another side to the story? And, this is the tough one, am I letting my own biases cloud my judgment?
It's like we got to be detectives or something, looking for clues, trying to spot the inconsistencies, not just taking everything at face value.
Exactly. Dig deeper. Question your assumptions.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid to change your mind if new information comes up.
Well, we've definitely covered a lot of ground today. The whole Miller situation, the security nightmare at these rallies, misinformation, critical thinking. It's a lot.
It really is. But I think the main takeaway is we can't just sit back and let all this information wash over us. We got to be engaged. Think critically about what we read, what we hear, and even what we believe.
Truer words have never been spoken. It's not easy, but it's more important now than ever. And hey, if this deep dive got you thinking, got you asking questions, then we've done our job. Stay curious out there, folks.